News from KSL.
We're following two big stories tonight impacting members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Tonight, they're mourning the loss of their leader and prophet.
It just really feels like I've lost a loved one, a close friend.
I have a lot of memories here with President Nelson.
We're looking back at the life and legacy of President Russell M. Nelson.
And a deadly attack on a church meeting house in Michigan, killing at least 2 people and injuring 8.
I'm completely distraught. This was a quiet neighborhood. You know, we've never seen anything like this.
We have live team coverage on those 2 stories tonight. Dan Rascone is live in Michigan for us. Mike Hedrick and Deanie Wimmer are anchoring our coverage from Temple Square in Salt Lake. Let's toss it over to Mike and Deanie.
Yeah, Ashley, it is really a somber night for church members. First off, dealing with that shooting coming out of Michigan and also the loss and the passing of church president Russell M. Nelson.
News specialist Dan Rascone is live tonight in Michigan with the latest on the investigation. Dan, what have you been able to learn there tonight?
Well, Mike and Deanie, as you can imagine, just a horrific tragedy out here in Michigan earlier today. I mean, this was a place of worship, a place where people were supposed to feel safe. Hundreds of them all gathered together in a Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints chapel when suddenly the unthinkable happens. That was just earlier today. And here's what we know so far. Here's what we know about this tragedy. Police say Thomas Jacob Sanford drove a truck through the front of a church. They say he then got out of the truck and opened fire on people inside. Investigators say he then started the building on fire. So far, 4 people have died and 8 others are injured. One of those injured is in critical condition. Members of the congregation are feeling the impact of today's tragedy.
To worship my Savior Jesus Christ, and I didn't expect this to happen, of course, and I've lost friends in there.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
And some of my little primary children that I teach on Sundays.
Investigators also say church members did what they could to protect those around them.
But the people who were inside that church at the time, they were shielding the children who were also present within the church, moving them to safety. Just hundreds of people just practicing their faith. Just extreme courage, brave, and that's the type of community that we are.
Now, as part of the investigation, Michigan State Police bomb squad units surrounded the suspect's home. SWAT teams then used robots to search the house. Investigators say improvised explosive devices were found at the scene of the attack. No word what police found at the suspect's home. Again, that investigation still continuing at this hour. The last press conference was just a few hours ago, and at that press conference, they talked a little bit about continuing to kind of dig through the rubble there to see if there are possibly more victims. We're along the roadside right here in Grand Blanc, Michigan. Up just behind me, a roadblock. Just beyond that roadblock is where that church is located. Again, people never expected something like this. We do have some sound apparently of 911. We'll toss to that.
I need manpower up here ASAP. I have people trapped in the building. Repeat, people trapped in the building. We got children inside too.
Yeah, those were the scary moments for people here, people running for their lives. We've heard a lot of different stories about people and the things that were happening inside of that chapel. Again, just a horrific thing that happened here earlier today in this small town where you heard from people saying this is a place they felt very safe, a house of worship where they were worshiping God, and then this happens. Mike and Deanie, of course, will be out here following this investigation, and we're live right now in Grand Blanc, Michigan. Back to you.
Yeah, just the sheer terror as you hear that and what the adults, the kids had to go through. Dan, thank you.
This attack in Michigan is impacting church members everywhere. News specialist Shelby Lofton spoke with a former missionary who served in the area and spent time in that chapel.
Shelby has more on the reaction here tonight. Shelby, what do you got?
Mike and Deanie, this young man served in the Michigan-Detroit mission just a few years ago, and he told me he spent nearly every day inside that chapel in Grand Blanc, and he said to see it go up in flames today was gut-wrenching.
My home away from home is being attacked.
Former missionary Charlie Gardner knows this church building inside and out.
We'd spend every day there. We would teach lessons there to people wanting to learn more.
The Utah native says before his mission, he'd never heard of Grand Blanc, Michigan. It quickly won him over.
There's like a little pond, like right behind the church. So we would go there on, preparation days and just fish.
He says the ward is full of strong families, and many of the members are resident doctors.
When we'd bring people to church, we were confident that they would be welcome.
It's hard for him to see images of the meeting house up in flames.
For someone to just walk in and do what they did, it's revolting.
On what was already a difficult day for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, this added to their grief.
It really is gut-wrenching to just see families be broken because of somebody committing a hateful act.
Gardner doesn't want this building to be remembered for this.
We need to remember the Christ-like attributes that these wonderful people have, the families involved, and just how we put our best foot forward as disciples of Christ.
Now, Gardner told me that he knows of two people who were shot at that church today, a father and his child. He said he hasn't been able to get in touch with them personally, but he was told they are in stable condition. He just doesn't know it for himself quite yet, a feeling many people across the country can likely relate to tonight. I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, it has to be hard for people like him, but that is some valuable perspective. Shelby, thank you.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints also issuing a statement tonight on this tragedy that was felled out of Michigan, calling it a tragic act of violence. And it reads in part here, "We are deeply grateful for the outpouring of prayers and concern from so many people around the world. In moments of sorrow and uncertainty, we find strength and comfort through our faith in Jesus Christ. Places of worship are meant to be sanctuaries of peacemaking, prayer, and connection. We pray for peace and healing for all involved."
We will continue to follow the latest developments on this investigation. And of course, Dan will stay there and continue bringing live coverage from Michigan. Be sure to download the KSL Plus app so that you can stay up to date on our coverage.
It's the Lord's church, and he directs it by revelation through those that we sustain as prophets.
The loving, kind, thoughtful, and just the smart way he went about everything.
I think he was a giant. He must go down as one of your very, very great presidents, or prophets you call them, don't you? Yes. I loved the man.
I love President Nelson. He will be deeply missed.
Sheep securely fold you. God be with you till we meet again.
We now turn our attention to the passing of the beloved prophet and president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, President Russell M. Nelson. He passed away last night, roughly around 10 o'clock. The oldest living prophet in the history of the church. By his side, his beloved wife, Wendy, as he passed.
Each of his living 8 children and their spouses spent time and visited with the prophet over the last week.
All right. Now, since he was called as a prophet back in 2018 at the age of 93, President Nelson visited 32 countries and territories and announced 200 new temples during his presidency.
He also ushered in some big changes. He asked people to call the church by its proper name, and he also implemented the 2-hour church block. He also built bridges with a watershed collaboration with the NAACP, and he met Pope Francis in 2019. He also led the church through the COVID-19 pandemic. President Nelson's life was filled with family, faith, and healing.
I can remember things that happened in my childhood as if it were yesterday.
Russell Marion Nelson was born September 9th, 1924. He's the son of Marion C. and Edna Anderson Nelson.
He received his undergraduate and medical degrees from the University of Utah and a PhD from the University of Minnesota. He held several leadership positions in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He was called as an apostle in 1984 and was sustained as prophet and president of the church in 2018.
The gospel of Jesus Christ has only one purpose, really, bottom line, and that's to make life better for people. And that's what we're going to do.
President Nelson and his wife, the former Dancel White, have 10 children and now many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Sister Nelson passed away in February 2005. In April 2006, he married Wendy L. Watson.
I have been married to two remarkable women. In fact, they're the finest women I've ever known. I could be prejudiced, of course.
President Nelson told us that over time, he came to think differently about the end of life.
I've learned that death is a beautiful thing. It's part of life. And I used to fear it as a doctor. I used to fight it as a doctor. And that's the kind of doctor you want. But
death was your enemy.
Death was my enemy. But now I understand that it is my gateway to the next and glorious world, which I'm not afraid of.
And reaction to his passing coming in really from all corners of the world.
We've seen a lot of it. News specialist Ashley Moser shows us some of those messages online. Ashley?
Well, President Trump issuing a statement tonight on Truth Social, reading in part, Russell was sharp and engaged in service up to the end. Our hearts and prayers are with his incredible wife, Wendy, his 10 children, 57 grandchildren, and more than 167 great-grandchildren, as well as members of the church all over our country. Russell had a remarkable life, pioneering life-saving heart surgery techniques and, of course, his ministry of many decades. He was a physician, literally and spiritually, and will be greatly missed. Governor Cox posting today, we are mourning the passing of President Russell M. Nelson, a prophet of God, a gentle leader, and a voice for peacemaking. He built bridges across faith traditions and cultures, serving God's children throughout the world. Abby and I will forever treasure our moments with him. Hail to the prophet, ascended to heaven. Mike, just some of the tributes coming in. We'll send it back to you.
Yeah, pretty powerful. All right. Thank you much, Ashley. Much more ahead here as we remember President Russell M. Nelson, including memories from those who knew him best, his family, his friends, and his neighbors. The Tabernacle Choir and Orchestra at Temple Square paying a special tribute to the late President Russell M. Nelson with a special music and spoken word today.
Yeah, news specialist Daniel Woodruff joins us now for more on that moment. It was a powerful tribute.
Yeah, Deanie, this was a completely full house in the Tabernacle, which I don't think they see every week. And this was something that the Tabernacle Choir and Orchestra at Temple Square had sort of changed up at the last minute to make today's broadcast in particular essentially a goodbye to President Nelson.
We sheep securely fold you. God be with you till we meet again.
The music that we gave today was of hope and of peace, and hopefully we comforted some of the family and some of the saints. And that's what our mission is to bring that hope and that peace to those throughout the world.
The choir usually sings God Be With You Till We Meet Again at the end of their broadcast every week, but today it really had special meaning. Some of those at the broadcast this morning were not only members of the church, but actors and celebrities who had been attending the FanX convention here in Salt Lake City, and some of them had touching memories to share about President Nelson as well.
I bought him a little hat for his birthday. I mean, what do you give, the president of the of the Mormon Church on his birthday? So I found him a little Irish hat to keep his head warm, and apparently he wore it once or twice too. I think he was a giant. He must go down as one of your very, very great presidents, or prophets you call them, don't you? Yes. I loved the man. I thought he was...
That was actor John Rhys Davies, who played in Lord of the Rings and Indiana Jones. Just a little bit of a sampling, Deanie and Mike, of some of the people that President Nelson touched. It could be celebrities and actors, or just the common church member or non-member alike that needed a little bit of encouragement and love.
And from what you said earlier, Daniel, he remembered them and remembered their names. So impressive. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, President Nelson touched so many people's lives.
Yeah, he certainly did. And, when you think of all the roles he played, the most important ones, if you ask friends and family, were that of husband, of father, of grandfather, of great-grandfather. And somehow, with all these roles of work, church, and family, he was able to balance them beautifully.
Our family is the focus of our greatest work and joy in this life.
I think what he's always done is wherever he is, that's where he is. So when he's at work, he's 100% at work. When he's home, he's 100% at home. When he's doing his church duty, he's 100% church duty. And so I think maybe that's how he balances things. I don't know. But he seems to do it, and he seems to do it effortlessly.
As a father, he's always been loving and has always tried to make time. Well, not tried, he's succeeded in making time for family. And more importantly, it's obvious to each one of us as the children and family members that it's not just that he makes time, it's that family is a priority, if not the priority.
All right, talking about family, let's talk numbers here for a moment, right? Because President Nelson, he was the father of 10 children, 57 grandchildren, and more than 167 great-grandchildren.
And as you heard them say, he made family a priority. Here's news specialist Carol Makita.
I had the opportunity of visiting with some of President Nelson's children and grandchildren before his 100th birthday celebration.
If I have to think of something that's going to stay with me forever, it's that that family comes first.
As a woman, appreciate his perspective on females and women in the church. I just love the confidence that he has in us and that he helps us feel in ourselves.
He's so good at making each person feel seen and important. They get a birthday card, they get a Christmas card individually, and when they see him, he says, oh, there's Bryce or there's Porter, and he makes each person just feel like they matter, and you can feel his love. And
always made it a priority to at least have one big family function where monthly we'd get together celebrate the birthdays. We all know he's just so busy, but he always made time for family, and that hasn't changed.
He takes great care to call us together when he can. When we are with him, that daddy heart is still there.
My most precious lesson that I learned from my parents is to love the Lord, put him first, and watch miracles happen.
Today, President Nelson's family members are remembering his words. Families are eternal. Carol Makita, KSL 5 News.
Thank you, Carol. Among those remembering their time with President Nelson are those who lived closest to him, his neighbors.
Yeah, and they shared with Aaron Cox that he was the same man, whether it was family, friends, or whoever he was around.
Yeah, that's right, Mike and Deanie. President Nelson lived in the Harvard-Yale area here in Salt Lake City, and his neighbors say they were not just included in the big moments, but the small moments of the Nelson family life. Steve Rich grew up next door to President Russell Nelson.
My earliest memory is that you had to get up pretty early in the morning if you wanted to shovel your own sidewalk, because President Nelson would do it.
President Nelson served as a stake president when Steve was preparing for his mission.
The interview was, I should say, very comprehensive.
After his mission, Steve moved a door down with his wife Melinda, where they watched President Nelson receive the call to the Quorum of the 12 Apostles.
He would be practicing talks. He would be saying talks while he was walking and memorizing them. And I thought that was always so cool.
The Riches watched the Nelson's family grow from a family of 9 to 10.
One time I came into the circle, and on the outside of the Nelson's house was this big blue blanket, and they'd had all these girls. And when we saw that blue blanket, we were so thrilled that they had Russell.
They enjoyed Christmas parties and community gatherings.
You know, we would set up a neighborhood party every September and invite all of our neighbors in the circle to come. And it was always just such a pleasure. Danzel was such a fun person. She sang in the choir. She had a beautiful voice. She taught in Relief Society. She was just a loving, warm person. And
it was at one of these neighborhood parties they received the news about Danzel Nelson's passing.
And I remember that as being kind of such a hard time for our ward. We loved that family very much.
Yet when they saw President Nelson on his morning walks, he spoke of joy.
He would talk about his joy in knowing that the resurrection and our life together in the future is real. When he gave talks about that, then it was pretty much the same talk that he gave to me in pieces.
Moments and memories as neighbors of President Nelson.
People would often say to us, "What was it like living next to President Nelson?" I'd say, "It's just exactly the same as he is now. It's not any different."
He has always extended himself for the welfare of his fellow beings and for the gospel and the church.
Now, the Rich family says that President Nelson was also influential to their neighbors in that same neighborhood who were not members of the church, that they were always invited to gatherings and always very involved. Mike, Deanie, back to you.
All of these things you hear about, characteristics of Christ, and that's what he emulated, and everyone will tell you that. It's just so powerful to hear these backstories. Thank you, Aaron.
Next, the passing of a prophet. The things that church members say they will remember about President Nelson.
Welcome back in. All right, Kristen, the weather not too bad out there today. Felt great.
No, it was beautiful. Oh my gosh, if you get up to the mountains and see the fall color, it's stunning. And then of course today we had a few storms around, so it made for this gorgeous rainbow. Thanks to Janelle for sending in this photo from Big Mountain Pass. You can see the gorgeous colors there in the foreground. And then another beautiful shot, thanks to Gerald for sending in this photo. He got this photo. Look at all those aspens looking so nice and gold out there. And then there's that rainbow there in the background, just stunning out there right now. That was thanks to a few storms that popped up earlier today. Now we're seeing everything quiet back down. There's an upper level low down to our south that's been bringing in some unsettled weather. That's heading out though, so we're drying things out tonight, and tomorrow's going to be a beautiful day all the way around. It's 67 degrees, south winds coming in at 10 yesterday, or today I should say. We topped out in the low 80s. Tomorrow we're going to have those highs back in the low 80s too. So low 60s in the morning, mid 60s by late morning, and then we're in the mid 70s by noon, upper 70s by 3 o'clock with our high tomorrow right around 81. And it's going to be tough to find a cloud in the sky. It's going to be gorgeous. Here's an overall look at the weather picture. Here's that low down to our south. So that's getting out of here. The next system that's up is going to be this low here, bringing in this trough that's going to swing across northern Utah late tomorrow night into Tuesday. So tomorrow's beautiful, but Tuesday we'll have scattered showers and storms, and our high temperatures will be back to the mid 70s, and then it clears out again. So our forecast model is showing that really nicely here. Monday afternoon tomorrow, we'll have a lot of sunshine. Can't rule out a stray storm in the Uintas or the mountains, but that would be the extent of it. Here's Tuesday. Chance for some showers, northern central Utah, maybe the southern mountains. Then that quickly gets out of here. Wednesday, Thursday look really nice and dry. We have southwest flow, could get a little breezy by the end of the week. And then Friday, one more system coming in, potentially bringing increasing chances for rain for the end of the week, and a more dramatic cool down for next weekend, where highs could only be in the 60s and lows in the 40s. So really feeling like fall. Your forecast for tomorrow, low 80s for Salt Lake, and then in St. George, mid 80s, upper 60s in Evanston. We'll have highs in the low 70s for the Park City area. Your 7-day forecast for St. George, mid to upper 80s for the next week. Partly cloudy Tuesday, mountain storms possible, and Friday we're going to be watching that closely for that potential for some rain. And then for the Wasatch Front, our temperatures stay pretty seasonable. We have temperatures in the low 80s tomorrow, mid 70s Tuesday, a little stormier, and then upper 70s to low 80s for the middle part of the week. And then you can see that drop going into next weekend. We're keeping a close eye on that. Forecast models aren't quite in agreement, so things may change. We'll keep you posted, but for now it looks like potentially some rain Friday and highs in the 60s next weekend, and maybe more rain to talk about next weekend.
We'll bottle up the sunshine tomorrow.
I know, it's gonna be nice.
We'll be right back.
of Latter-day Saints. President Nelson met with journalists really from all around the world many a times, but he still always made time for some of the young journalists just starting out in the biz.
As in news specialist Aaron Cox. Aaron, you met President Nelson before he was prophet.
That's right, Deanie and Mike. I interviewed with President Nelson the September before he became prophet, which was 8 years ago. At the time, I was a student journalist with Utah State University, and you can see in these pictures here, he asked his wife Wendy to sit behind me and to sit behind the camera so he could look at her during the interview, and even saying to me during our mic check, he always treated me like a professional, even though I was a student at the time. We spoke of many topics that night, but the one that stood out to me the most was when I asked him what it meant to him to bear the title of special witness. This is what he said.
A witness is a person who has knowledge. A special witness has special knowledge. And so when one of us, as special witnesses of the Lord, says we know that God lives, and we know that Jesus is the Christ, and we know the gospel is restored in these latter days through the prophet Joseph Smith, we know that because we have special knowledge, some of which has been obtained in temples, in sacred places, and we don't speak in detail about that, but take my word for it. We know what we're saying. It is true. Thank you.
And that was the end of our interview. He was 93 years old at the time, and he was absolutely bright and brilliant. He was very articulate with his word choice. Every question I had, he had a quick answer for it that was so thoughtful. It was an interview experience I will never forget. Mike and Deanie, back to you.
Oh, I can imagine you wouldn't.
Oh,
Aaron,
yeah.
thank you. What a great experience.
Yeah, pretty special. Hey, stick around. We'll be right back.
It has been a somber day here on Temple Square and really throughout Utah as we have covered the death of President Russell M. Nelson and the breaking news in Michigan. And yet, as we've heard these tributes and these remembrances of the prophet, there's kind of been a silver lining at the end of all of it.
There's been joy that's come with that. After a man who lived 101 years, the characteristics that he had and how he led out this church has been second to none. It's been incredible. And so being able to hear that from those close to him, those who knew him from a distance, has been a beautiful thing. And so, as you mentioned, that's the silver lining. Of course, we're going to continue to follow and pay tribute to President Russell M. Nelson. That'll continue here on KSL 5 News, starting again tomorrow at 4:30. On KSL Today.
We will also continue our live reports coming in on the shooting in Michigan, and we'll keep bringing you updates as we learn them online on the KSL Plus app and on air. Thanks for watching tonight. KSL Sports Live is next.